Paul Cleary. What can I say? In the late 70s, early 80s, Paul Cleary fronted the Blades, for whom he wrote and recorded the finest string of singles by any Irish rock band ever, and there's no argument about that. As a result of this, he was hailed as the voice of his generation. Next stop, the world, or so you would think. But the critical success was never matched by commercial success, and then Cleary appeared to turn his back on music. However, with the release of a new CD this week, we see him back in the limelight, and just before we meet the man himself, here's a reminder of one of the finest bands we've ever produced in this country.
Changed a bit.
Thanks very much. Paul, you're very welcome.
Very welcome.
Just before we go on, and I know you wanted to mention this, that video was shot by a man called Bob Collins, who was responsible for a huge raft of programs on RT in those days, Anything Goes, and he did a lot of music stuff, and he passed away, unfortunately, this year.
He did, yeah. He died this year, and I mean, I wasn't a close friend of Bob's, but he was a great guy, and it was his idea to have it in black and white, and he was just very thoughtful, and a lot of help for young bands at the time. At the time as well, sometimes producers and directors would get you in and say, here's what we're doing, and take or leave it. But actually, Bob would ask you, what do you want to do?
And listen to you.
And listen to you, yeah.
Here, listen to me. I have to say, I was actually very surprised when I read the Tribune last week. There's a big bash to relaunch the album and all the rest of it, because I know you of old. I don't know you personally very well, but I know you of old, and you're not the kind of person who would do this. And I know that over the years people have said, why can't we get the Blade stuff? Why hasn't it been reissued? And I also know that you turned your back on it.
Yeah.
So what changed your mind this time?
Well, one of the reasons was that people were saying, people were asking us to reform and do a few gigs, but I think that was mostly for their benefit rather than for ours. I mean, they weren't asking me was I writing any new songs. So it was Elvira Butler of Ricus Records. I met her last year, and she said, look, why don't we bring this stuff out on CD? And I said, well, that's okay, that's not a bad idea, because some people had been saying to me, can I get your stuff on CD? And because it was 1979, 1980, 1984, that was pre-CD. I said, okay, but I'm not playing, we're not playing, because, you know, we're all in our 40s now, and we're not going to go up on stage and do all that again for other people's benefits. I just think it would be undignified to do it. So I'm fine with this. This is certainly my last hurrah, in a way, in terms of the Blades.
But the Blades, it's interesting that I can't remember a bad word written about the Blades in the 5 or 6 years when everybody thought you were the next big thing. You were, I mean, everybody loved you. The music was fabulous and has stood the test of time.
Right.
Going back there to I mean, the level of expectation that you would quite rightly have had because of what was being written about you, that never came true. Did that give you a really hard time?
Oh yeah, I was very bitter about the whole thing. Of course I was, because we were built up to be the next big thing, and there was a sales in U2, of course, and U2 went on to bigger and better things. And yeah, I wouldn't listen to contemporary music for a while, and basically didn't want to know, and was very bitter and very angry. I had no focus for my anger as such. Just I suppose, disappointed. Hugely disappointed that we never made it internationally. And
was it because of what other people were saying to you, Paul, or was it because you believed that the work that you did at that stage, which if you compare it to U2's early work, I mean, it kicked U2's early stuff out of the park. There's no question about it.
It's very difficult to be subjective about it. Of course, you want to believe people when they say you're very good and so on, but I still believe they're great songs. Now, I have to say we played a lot of gigs with U2, and despite they were novices in terms of songwriting. Songwriting was never their thing, but they were a great band on stage. They certainly knew how to generate. Yeah, they were great performers. They used a lot of crude stage dynamics at the time, but still, they were one of the bands that could really play a good gig. There was a lot of bands who were getting written about who really weren't that good, but U2 had it all right, there's no doubt about it.
So back then, in the late 70s, a lot of punk was around. What were your main influences?
Well, it was punk. I mean, the good thing about punk was that you didn't have to be a virtuoso musician. It was anyone can do it.
Yeah.
And so I suppose the Sex Pistols, the Clash. I remember seeing the Clash in Trinity College in I think it was 78. could have been 77.
That was a
70.
big gig for a lot of
It was
Dublin
great,
guys.
and that was really inspiring. And of course, you're in the crowd and you're poguing, which was a dance at the time, and I was thinking, well, I want to be up there, rather than down there was great, but I want to be up there as well. So the Clash, the Sex Pistols, the Jam, and also there was a Dublin band called the Vipers, which you may remember them from about 77. And they wrote their own pop songs and so on, and I thought, well, they were very good as well. So it was a mixture of all that stuff, but it was the anything goes type of ethos. You really don't have to have gone, school of music, none of that. Get up and do it yourself,
But you very early on, you were marked out as somebody who seemed to have an instinctive grasp of writing a song.
Yeah.
And you seem to be interested in the craft of writing a
Sure.
song, which would have marked you out. It wasn't just get up there and make a noise and have fun.
No, that was part of it. In terms of the songs, because I suppose I was schooled, I used to listen to the Beatles. My father was a big Beatles fan. And so from the time I was 12 or 13, it was the Beatles all the time. And by listening to the Beatles and by singing along with Beatles records, subliminally that gets in. And when the time comes to start crafting a pop song in terms of chord structure and melody and harmony, I found, to my surprise, pleasant surprise, that I actually knew something about it. That's a weird one.
That's what's made your music stand the test of time, though.
Hopefully, yeah, that the songs are well crafted. They are actually good songs. Yeah.
So you're happy about the re-release?
I am now. I was a bit reluctant at the beginning, and
There's a great line. There's a great line quoted there. It's like, what was you said? It's like a dog going back to his...
a dog going back to his own dirt. Yeah. But I didn't mean that in terms of the songs, the music, which I'm quite proud of. Just doing the whole thing again and going through
Rehashing the whole thing,
Yeah. I mean, it makes me feel like old man time. I'm not, of course.
Well, I'm looking forward to having a listen.
Well,
anyway,
you
Paul.
know now whether you like it or not. You're back on the treadmill again.
I know.
Well, welcome back.
Absolutely, welcome
Thanks,
back.
Gone but not forgotten. Cheers, Paul.